Hi everyone, welcome to Tuesday Tips. I thought I'd talk today about the histamine bucket. So, histamine bucket is something that we use to describe the level of histamine in our body. So really, with histamine intolerance, the problem isn't so much histamine itself, it's that the amount of histamine that's in our body becomes a problem for us. And in this way, the cup or the bucket full of histamine in our body overflows and we see symptoms. So if we explain the bucket, we may start with a person that has, say, an allergy. So they have a dust mite allergy, and that goes into the bucket and starts to fill it up a little bit at the bottom. Then it might be that they've just done some exercise, they've been running, that adds into the bucket as well. So that can add in more histamine because the body will release histamine when we exercise. Then you might have a really stressful day and that adds into the bucket. So this little bit of stress actually, or big bit of stress, can actually increase histamine levels in the body because our mast cells produce histamine in response to stress. They also produce histamine in response to emotional issues as well. So you might have had a big argument with someone, you might be really worrying about an assignment that's due or some big presentation at work, and that goes as well. Now, one of the problems we also have is sometimes there's a lot of low-lying stress that's there all the time, and that fills up our bucket without us even being aware that there's something going on that's causing extra stress. So those things are all adding to histamine levels in our body. Then we also may have other triggers. So mold can be another one that adds into our bucket. Heavy metals, pesticide exposure, things like that, pop them in there. Maybe you've had some viruses when you were younger, like Epstein-Barr, chickenpox, herpes. Sometimes those things can flare back up again or can cause some underlying inflammation. Pop those in there as well. So what happens is we have this bucket and it's probably pretty full on most days. And then we add the food in, nice bit of sauerkraut, glass of wine, and boom, over it goes. Now we all have different levels of tolerance, this little bucket or cup that we have. So for most people on most days, they don't have as much of a reaction, their body doesn't react as much to stress, they don't have exposure to any of these potential environmental exposures, so they've got better gut bacteria, all these things add up, and they're not actually having such a small bucket. They've got a really big bucket and they can throw loads of food in there on top and it's all good. But for a lot of us, our bucket is a lot smaller and it's a lot more full. So we add in a little bit of food and sorry, we had a phone call. We add in a bit of food and that food overflows the bucket, and that's when we see the symptoms. So sometimes you can have small amounts of food and they can give you a small amount of symptoms. Sometimes you can have a lot of food and you can have a lot of symptoms. And this bucket also, because histamine hangs around in the body for a long period of time, this bucket isn't just what's happened today. It's usually what's happened over 2 or 3 days. Because histamine has a half-life in the body of 3 days and it hangs around. We might take an antihistamine, it might block that histamine from producing some symptoms, but it's still floating around in the body, and the body takes time to degrade the histamine. And another thing that can add to our issues is we can be a slow metabolizer of this histamine as well. Our DAO enzymes or our HNMT enzymes can be sluggish. So those are all the different things that can add to these potential issues. And what we can do about them, the easiest one to control first is food. So that's why the first thing we do is go, right, let's pull all of those histamine containing foods out of the diet and reduce the symptoms. And then we can play with it, add a little bit of food in, see how we go. Then we also need to work on underlying issues as well. So I'll be talking more about those in future videos. I have talked a little bit about some of them here and there. So tune in next week and we'll talk about some more. Also, if you don't already have it, there's a free low histamine food guide that indicates histamines, amines, which are the mother of histamines, they're part of the family, and histamine liberators as well. So you can use that to guide your diet. And if you need help, there's a 4-week meal plan, which is like a little mini program. It has recipes, it has everything you need to get started on a low histamine diet. You can pretty much pick it up and run with it. It's got a shopping list. You can go straight down to the store, buy everything you need, start on your plan. The week before you start, there's a whole bunch of basics in there that you can whip up, like vegetable stocks, your own gluten-free flour mix, your own herb and spice mixes, and then you can move forward and follow it through every week. If you switch from a high histamine diet to a low histamine diet, you should see a change in histamine activation symptoms. So if you've got hives that are being caused by that histamine in the food, you will see that reduce usually within a week. Longer term, it takes a bit longer, but you should be able to see whether that diet's working for you in that 4 weeks, and then after that you start reintroducing. So if you want either of those things, they are available on the Facebook page, and they're also available on Instagram in the link in my bio, so you can get them from either of those places. And also if you're here in the Facebook group, there's a link to it as well.